Support for Soccer Today is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the Ultimate Man's Hygiene Bundle, the Performance Package. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SOCCERTODAY at manscaped.com.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Friday, June 17th, 2026. No, 2022, but we will be talking about 2026 today on this show. I'm Kevin Laramie, joined by Duane Rollins. We'll invite you to subscribe to our YouTube page and click on that notification bell to be made aware whenever we upload a brand new podcast. And today on the show, we will break down every single host city of the United 2026 World Cup between Canada, United States, and Mexico. We'll break down the 3 Mexican cities, the 11 American cities, and the 2 Canadian cities. But first of all, Duane, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well, Kevin. I was a little sore this morning, and now I understand because I aged 4 years overnight. It's 2026. That's shocking, but I guess I'm going to have to deal with it.
Exactly. The World Cup is upon us. Another World Cup is upon us, but that's true, though. And the 2026 World Cup host cities were unveiled yesterday, and we'll break them down. If you're looking for the Major League Soccer's weekend preview, it will take place later in the show after the break. We'll break down every single game, a full slate in Major League Soccer. 14 games will take place. But let's start with Atlanta. Of course, 16 cities, Toronto, Vancouver. You know already if you're watching this show, you've heard the news. Toronto, Vancouver, the Canadian cities, 11 American cities, Mexico, Monterrey, and Guadalajara. But we'll break down all the cities, the stadium, and what it means for those cities to have the World Cup in 2026. And Duane, I think it's important that we go into an unbiased way. So we will be going by what I call alphabetical order for today, because it's easier, it's unbiased, and it starts with Atlanta. Here is Atlanta, first named city here. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 70,000 plus fans. It is one of the newer stadiums that will be in this World Cup. No new stadium per se built for this World Cup. The biggest World Cup in history, 48 teams, 16 host cities. What is your thought on Atlanta being a host city?
Well, I mean, it was pretty obvious Atlanta was going to be one of the cities. I mean, they weren't one of the ones you were particularly worried about. They've kind of hubbed this a little bit. There's kind of a Southwest hub down there. Atlanta, I think, has a chance to perhaps be involved in the very late portions of this tournament. It is one of the nicer stadiums that has been built the last few years. A lot of amenities there. Obviously, you see the big crowds for Atlanta United. I think that's a little bit overstated how much it matters, how you're drawing locally, but certainly it has shown that it is a good place there. And more importantly, and this is stuff we talk about all the time, we used to talk about in Five Rings, the transportation hub of Atlanta is second to none. Yes. It is a transportation hub, and that matters too.
Oh, yeah. And but the traffic itself is terrible. And here's a couple of excerpts from a really superb article on The Athletic that is reviewing every single host city. So here is what they say about Atlanta a little bit. The southern city has quickly emerged as a legitimate soccer hotbed in the U.S., mainly because of the early success of Atlanta United. The club has broken MLS attendance records and is currently ranked 8th in the world in terms of average match attendance. That's not too shabby. It is the home of CNN, Turner, Warner Media, and Atlanta United president Darren Hills is really happy about this. You talk about the transportation infrastructure. It is a hub for airport. The airport is a big Delta hub. And to be clear, Atlanta traffic is awful, according to Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic. And he says that it doesn't matter what time of day it is, you can find yourself stuck in gridlock. But there is the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, known as MARTA, no H, so Superman and Batman don't have to get into an argument of who saved Martha. It's Marta, as locals call it. And that includes bus route in a rapid transit system that starts at the airport and drops passengers off just steps away from the bands, which makes a big difference. And we'll talk about this aspect. It is a big aspect into which cities were named the public transportation options.
Yeah, look, I've been in Atlanta. I spent 2 weeks in Atlanta a long time ago now, but I did. The airport link of the MARTA is pretty good. Now, locals complain about the MARTA. It doesn't serve the community as best as it could. But in terms of tourists, I think it's going to be just fine because it is an easy, as my memory serves, an easy sort of jump to the subway to go downtown. So that'll be good. Look, Atlanta is a cultural hotspot in the United States. It deserves to be part of this. If you're going to have an American bid, a North American bid, you want to have cities that have a historic presence, and Atlanta definitely does. Not always for good reasons, but it definitely is part of the historic landscape of the United States.
Absolutely, and we'll keep an eye on Atlanta. Maybe I'll dream of making my way down to Atlanta for a game going forward. Now it's time to look at the second game second host city, and it's Boston. We're shipping out to Boston, Duane. Boston, or should we say Foxborough, will be host city. It will be at Gillette Stadium. We know that stadium a lot. That's where the New England Revolution plays. It has a capacity of 60,000 plus when it is configured for soccer. The pitch will have to be taken care of. It's not going to be on plastic. The pitches will be replaced. For the entirety of this World Cup, it will be played on grass. And Boston, or should we say Foxborough, will be a host city. Why Boston? Well, Boston is a big city, one of the biggest city in the United States, and there's a history there. Boston go back to 94 with the World Cup. It's very important. And there is, notably in the bid book, the map of Boston presented doesn't even show Gillette Stadium, but there will be a lot of upgrades into the transportation aspect to commute to Gillette Stadium. That is a big problem right now, and you can see special commuter rail trains being built from Boston and even all the way to Providence, Rhode Island, to make their way to Gillette Stadium to facilitate travel. Car travel will also be the key, being maybe one of the easiest stadium to go to by car of this World Cup, meaning by campers and RV, because this will be one way to support this World Cup is you get your entire family in an RV and you go on a 2-week road trip from cities to cities. But what is your thought on Boston being named in this bid?
You're making me itch a little bit when you talk about cars being the easiest way to get there. It's not, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that's not really how I think. And in fact, getting some rail links out there might be very good for the people of Boston and benefit them long term. So that's good. Look, Boston was going to always be part of this bid too. It's Boston, for God's sakes. That's one of 5 cities everyone in the world knows in the United States. I think there's going to be, England's getting drawn there, and there's going to be a whole bunch of Tea Party jokes the entire time. So it'll be kind of cool that way. No, it's Boston. Look, Foxborough is a bit unfortunate in terms of that distance. It's the ultimate suburban whale that's out there. They're not going to build it anywhere new since. That's why the Revs are stuck out there. They've been, maybe this. I think that's my big thought from an MLS perspective is that they'll probably do upgrades in the stadium enough that the Revs won't leave, which is unfortunate for Revs fans because they need to get their own stadium in downtown to really grow that brand. But we'll see. 4 years, you never know. Maybe they can build off it and go from there. If they get good links, then it'll be better. If you have transit links, yes, you can drive there, you can park there, but you got to get out of your damn car. Sometimes people, that's why you have traffic. You know how to fix traffic, Kevin? This is an urban show, but I'll tell you, the way to fix traffic is to have less cars. Period. End of story. Anyway, go on. Move.
You also live in a city, which is not everybody. So it's also different when you live in a rural area where it's just not the same feasibility. But yes, it has to be taken into consideration. When now we move to Dallas, Dallas will be host to a World Cup in 2026, AT&T Stadium. And when we say Dallas, we actually mean Arlington, Texas, just a little bit off Dallas. A beautiful stadium, maybe Duane's favorite place of this entire World Cup, because of his love for the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T Stadium, the expected capacity with the soccer configuration would be a little bit over 85,000. What's spectacular here and what you see is the rails for the soccer field. The soccer field will be able to be put outside to get some sun and then roll back in. That's one of the beauty of this infrastructure. One of the few stadiums that has that capability with the stadium in Arizona that is not getting a World Cup game. But Dallas, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Stadium, one of the biggest stadium to hold a game. Maybe not where the final will be, but definitely knockout matches will take place there. Duane, I know you probably dream of going there in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably be there. I'm planning to go there before the 4 years. I'm planning to go down there in the fall in the next little while. Not this year because of World Cup, probably next year. Anyway, enough about me. No, it's a beautiful stadium. It absolutely is. It's the first of what I would call like the new age stadiums that are getting built right now, the space age stadiums, so to speak. It's kind of the first of that generation, AT&T, and it certainly has, it's living up to the hype. Like it's a wonderful place to watch a game. It's not quite like the one out where the Rams play, the LA Stadium, which we'll talk about soon. It's out of this world space age, but this is definitely in that vein. It's all geared in. Digital age is probably the better way to put it. It's the first digital kind of ears thing, and it'll host a semifinal. It'll absolutely be one of the semifinal stadiums.
Yeah, so AT&T Stadium will require a drive. It's in Texas. It's not like you have like public transit that goes there, right? We know that. So it will require a drive. It has a really massive parking lot, so it does solve that problem. But organizers will need to organize some sort of shuttle service or invest in some other form of public transport to facilitate the tourist aspect of the World Cup, where you will have tourists that come in and don't necessarily have a car to drive to the stadium, and you'll need some sort of transportation. But Dallas is not a surprise here at all when we're talking about World Cup cities. We're not going to dwell on it. We'll have plenty of time. We've got 16 cities to talk about. Let's now move to Mexico, to Guadalajara, a beautiful stadium that is, I have to say, a bit unknown. People don't know as much as the other ones. It was built in 2004. It is where Chivas plays. Guadalajara Estadio Akron, 49,000 seats. It is a beautiful setting. This picture that you see on your screen maybe does not do it justice. There is mountains in the background. There's green area all around the stadium with beautiful walkways in the lush greenery of Guadalajara to get into this stadium. Why Guadalajara? It's a major metropolis and one of Mexico's most recognized footballing cities, home of Chivas and reigning two-time Liga MX champion Atlas. Guadalajara is historically known for its sporting tradition. However, sectors of Atlas fan base were involved in the stadium violence that took place in Querétaro in March. That was over 20 dead, by the way. It was a stain for Mexican football, and at the time a threat to Guadalajara's chances to remain a 2026 host city. It has come to fruition. They will host, and for a city over 4 million people, Guadalajara boasts an effective mass transit system, taxis, a modern trolley transportation, and what the city refers to as bus rapid transit, BRT in short, keeps masses moving throughout the city, the second biggest city in Mexico behind Mexico City, which will also host game. Guadalajara was always going to be part of this World Cup also, Duane.
Are you trying to set me up for a transit podcast? Because I will do one. No, we'll leave that well enough alone for now. Yeah, Guadalajara was always going to have one because let's face facts here. I mean, FIFA wants to go to nice places. This is Guadalajara. It's a resort town. It's a place it's beautiful and it's beachy and you've got sunshine and it's going to be very hot there. That will be the downfall of all the Mexican sites in this and the Texas sites for that matter. They're going to be unbearably hot at the time of year that this World Cup takes place. They will be hotter than people talk to Qatar. The heatness there for no ends. It's going to be much hotter in the United States, even where I am. It was 40 degrees Celsius in Toronto yesterday. So it's hot here at that time of year.
Miami? Like Miami in the summer? That's going to be hot. We'll talk about Miami later.
Yeah.
Like Dallas and other big stadiums like that, they have air conditioning, so that's not a problem. But other stadiums that are open, that will be different. And we talk about Texas. We talk about Houston, which is the next city we're going to talk about. And Houston will be a hot and muggy place to be. NRG Stadium. A capacity of over 72,000. This is where the Houston Texans play. Why Houston? Because it's the fourth most populous city in the United States, with a large and growing international community. Like Dallas and Kansas City, there's plenty of space to build infrastructure around the stadium, from transport and all. And there are numerous universities and professional level facilities that can host World Cup teams around. Houston's light rail has a stop right next to the stadium, and that same line runs right into downtown. It's hard to overemphasize just how huge a metro area Houston is. If they need to build anything else, chances are very high there will be space for it. So that is positive that Houston already has that. But once again, turf will need to be put in. It also interestingly to know that it used to have it used to have natural grass, and they took it out in 2015 to put artificial grass, and now they're gonna have to take the artificial grass out to put natural grass back in. But Houston, a World Cup city, the second city in Texas to get the World Cup after Arlington, Duane.
Yeah. Well, Texas could have hosted the World Cup on its own. They have enough stadiums in Texas proper that they could have probably hosted the World Cup on
just
their
with college football stadiums. They're good. Yeah. They're good to go.
Yeah, look, Houston, as you mentioned, the population base there is massive. They have a huge Mexican-American population there. It is going to be, I suspect Mexico will they'll play their games in Mexico, but I suspect if they can work it out that the crossover games happen up there, they'll be happy to do that too. It will be another home stadium for them. It's a huge, huge city. And you mentioned that it's a huge geographical city too. That's going to be a challenge to move people around. I'm glad they have some rapid transit near the stadium. Hopefully they improve that. Hopefully everyone's life that isn't just football fans gets improved by these things happening. That's the ultimate goal. Soft hard benefits, old five drinks and out listeners.
You be proud of me because I mentioned the soft and hard benefit on CTV News Channel Live last night. So that was pretty good talking about it. Let's continue our rundown of stadium. We've talked about Houston. It's now time to talk about Kansas City. Maybe the most surprising city of all for me. It's the oldest stadium to be in the World Cup. Arrowhead, where the Kansas City Chiefs play. 76,000 is the capacity, a little bit more. It did, of course, host a few important international games. World Cup qualifiers in 2001 when USA beat Costa Rica was there. It's the oldest American stadium at the World Cup. It was opened in 1972. Why Kansas City is the city's decade plus of consistent support for MLS's SKC certainly played a role. It's also a big sticking point that would likely have prevented KC from being a host city, is that they missed out. If you would have been left out because of all the history, the size of the population, and geography, that word, the location of the city is important for Kansas City. It is, of course, going to be known as a World Cup city going forward. The downtown area is up and coming with several hotel options, an ideal spot for a fan zone at the Power and Light District. That'll be a fun time for Kansas City, and I do believe that the views, aerial views, and the fact that it's an outside city, outside stadium, it will bring different type of views, and it will be great for a lot of reasons. Duane, your thought on Kansas City as a host city, quickly.
Well, you touched on it, geography. It's hit in a region. They've got to hub this out. It's such a massive geographical footprint that this tournament is taking place on, that they need to have cities that sort of can group together easily.
Yeah, and another city that can group together nicely with cities in the West Coast area is Los Angeles. Let's look at Los Angeles, LA, Hollywood, with an amazing stadium. Maybe my favorite stadium in the entire World Cup. SoFi Stadium, over 100,000 fans will be packed inside this magnificent, unidentified aerial phenomenon looking type of stadium. It is quite an impressive feat of engineering with the lake, the beautiful everything it has. And I'm looking forward to having amazing games take place in LA. Mexico will probably have games in LA, and it will be quite the stadium for LA and for Mexico, because Mexico will be a popular team at that place. Of course, it was always going to be a city, Duane. LA, Hollywood. You can't have a World Cup in the States. But it won't be at the Rose Bowl. That's where the final was in 1994. It won't be a repeat. But if you could maybe bet an old $2 bill in Canada where the final will be, I think the final is going to take place at SoFi Stadium, live from Hollywood, Duane.
I'd take your bet because I think it'll be in New York, but this will certainly be a semifinal site and possibly the third place game. The reason I think it'll be in New York is because they are much more geared around European TV audiences, and that's a tough TV time for Europe. So, it's not tough TV time because what they do is they back it up to a noon start. If you go to the '94 World Cup, it was a 1 p.m. or a 12:30 a.m. or 12:30 p.m. start. That made it very hot, made it not the best final. So that might be why they have it in New York. It might be a little bit more tempered temperatures.
Well, the only difference is SoFi Stadium is a dome, so it's inside and it has air conditioning. So there will be a controlled tempered situation at about 21 degrees Celsius, about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. But yes, if it was outdoors, it would have been a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it could be in New York. It's either going to be in New York or LA, the final. So either or, but yeah.
All right, now a place that will see the opening game of the 2026 World Cup. Mexico City, the host of the final in 1970 and 1986. One of the few stadiums that I have visited personally in this list, Estadio Azteca, the big giant of Mexico City. It is an amazing place, a cathedral, one of the few cathedrals left of the beautiful game with Wembley and the Maracanã. Estadio Azteca is home to Club America, Cruz Azul. It is nicknamed El Coloso de Santa Úrsula. Over 100,000 fans can get in. That is where Diego Maradona did his Hand of God and more. This was going to be always a very important stadium for legacy purposes. For also, it is a cathedral. It's a cathedral of football. It is the big elephant in the room of Estadio Azteca. It was always going to be a prominent figure of this World Cup, Duane.
Well, there were three cities, I would say, more than that. But in terms of the Canadian and the Mexican part of this bid, I think the only mystery was the Vancouver part of it. So Mexico City being named is absolutely obvious. We know it's the first games to be played there. It makes sense. I mean, I had harbored a deep felt hope that maybe they might throw us a bone, but apparently not. It's us being Toronto or Vancouver to host the first game because we are one of the three hosts, but we're the forgotten one, I think. So maybe that just means the Canadian national team has to go deeper than the other two teams in the tournament to make up for it.
Hey,
so
which could happen. Imagine if Canada makes it all the way to the semifinal and Canada becomes North America's team. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
North America for Canada. Hashtag. That'll be funny in 2026. Yeah. But yeah.
Yes, well, we can get into that another day. But no, Mexico City, obviously, it makes sense to play the first game there. If the Americans were hosting the majority of this tournament, it makes sense to play final there. But this is a U.S. tournament with us tagging along. We'll take it because it helps. We'll take it.
Exactly. We'll take it. We'll take it for sure. Also, one thing that I'm really glad that I took over the last few weeks is Manscaped, our sponsor of today's show. Manscaped has been a very big addition to my grooming and even my athletic routine every day. Being somebody who likes going to the gym and play soccer on a daily basis nowadays, well, the Manscaped anti-chafing boxers that come with the Performance Package 4.0. They're amazing boxers. They are anti-chafing, they're comfortable, they'll suit you properly, and I even like that the elastic band doesn't roll. So when you have a little roll like I still do, well, the band doesn't roll and it helps keep everything snug. Speaking of keeping everything snug, we have the Lawnmower 4.0, the best waterproof clipper you'll ever use for your personal area. It's the best tool for the job, the best tool for your family jewel, and it will be very useful. It is usable in the shower, waterproof, and a big addition to my personal grooming on a daily basis. The weed whacker for your nose and your ears is very useful before you go on camera, like I do on a daily basis. You never want to have parts of you that shows out of holes on camera, and the weed whacker is really good for that aspect. And of course, I'll finish with the ball deodorant and the ball toner, two products that are really helpful to impress your partner. It's Father's Day. This is a great gift, and it comes really quickly when you go to manscaped.com. 20% off for the father in your life, or the fathers in your life. It's important, and it's a great gift. 20% off, free shipping worldwide with manscaped.com. Code soccer today. That's 20% off, free shipping worldwide with the code soccer today at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always have the right tool for the job with Manscaped. We'll be right back after this short break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Kev Laramie with Duane Rollins. Time for the shout out. You can become a member of the shout out tier by going to patreon.com/2solitudes. You'll get access to the Two Solitudes Soccer podcast, and it is a very important time of every show where we thank all our patrons, all the superb human beings that helps us pay the bills. Thank you to Blue Collar Dan, who's a listener on a daily basis, longtime supporter of this show, Sean, Daniel, Dennis, Gladimir, Gonzalo, and if you want to be part of this great bunch, you can do so at patreon.com/2solitudes. Kev Laramie with Duane Rollins as we continue our breaking down of the last few stadiums left, and Duane will have to leave us very soon, so we'll just finish with Miami with Duane before we continue. Miami is going to be hot and muggy, but it's a beautiful city to host a World Cup. Hard Rock Stadium, a very American type of stadium, but that will be very beautiful for the eyes. The teal aspect, the beauty, the Miami, the architecture, the amount of Miami Vice joke we'll get. It'll be a beautiful time in South Beach.
Well, it's also the airport that connects to literally everywhere in Central and South America. So it's a hub. It's an obvious choice. It's a good choice. The weather's going to be the issue, but the weather's going to be an issue everywhere. So what are you going to do? You got to be in Miami.
You got to be in Miami. And as soon as the plane lands, people will say, welcome to Miami, for sure. That'll be a... I don't know.
People that are born in this very specific range around your age, yes.
I was popular with different age group too. But yeah, Miami will be an important place because, yes, it's not the stadium where Inter Miami fans would love. You know, they would love for their stadium to be built, but it doesn't exist yet. They don't play there, and it's maybe the best compromise to get games in South Beach. To me, Miami had to be part of it for the big fan base that exists from South America, Central America, and from North America, from the Cuban descendants, and all that multicultural diversity that exists in Miami will be very useful. And to me, that's one of the most important aspects of this bid. But Miami, the Hard Rock Stadium, it's one of the smallest ones. Duane, 67,518 is the capacity. But it is also lacking public transportation. That will be a point to make better again. But, you know, I think they can make it work. There's space to work around the stadium.
Yeah, well, I mean, the political reality of Florida might make that difficult, but we'll see. Yeah, look, you got to have transit links going to these stadiums if you want to move people effectively. You can't move people effectively with a car. That's not me editorializing. That's just reality. So you got to do that.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll say goodbye to Duane for today as I continue to break down the great stadiums that will take place. And this is my favorite stadium of them all in this list of cities and stadium. A very nice stadium that will be spectacular. It's in Monterrey. It's next to mountains. You will see drone shots that are impressive next to the mountains. From the mountain, from the side, from the outside of the stadium, you will see extreme beauty. It's one of the nicest stadiums in the world. Here's what Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic says about Monterrey. Monterrey's Estadio BBVA is an absolute beauty. The stadium seats 51,000 fans, and its backdrop is amongst the most stunning stadium visuals around the world. Nicknamed the Steel Giant, expect the mountainous aerial shots of this modern venue to be a centerpiece of the 2026 World Cup. The stadium was inaugurated in 2015, which made Monterrey a prime candidate to host games in 2026. Monterrey is also home to Rayados, a Liga MX annual title contender who won the Champions League in CONCACAF a few times. Monterrey, and a high-spending club. Humberto Suazo was one of my favorite players a few years ago in Liga MX, and he was playing for Monterrey. Taxis, modern metro trains and buses shuttle visitors and local throughout this bustling city, including the stadium. Public transportation won't be an issue for this city. What needs to be done in Monterrey? Not much. It's just 11 years old. The stadium is up to par. It's already considered one of North America's most modern venues. And a fun fact, according to Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic, Monterrey locals are referred to as Regios or Regals. The city is also home to one of Mexico's biggest football rivalry, of course, Tigres and CF Monterrey, known as Rayados. They battle for regional superiority, and it will be a fun time to see this stadium featured in the 2026 World Cup. Let's go back to the States. Let's go back to New York, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium on the East Coast, a capacity of 82,500, the home of the Giants and the Jets of New York. This will be a famous place, maybe host of the final. We'll see. Speculations are brewing to see where the final will take place. 82,500 is what we say the capacity for this stadium. It opened in 2010. The stadium was built with adjustable stands so the field can meet FIFA regulations for soccer, and though the regular surface is artificial turf, grass has been laid down in the past without issue. It's the media capital of the US, so that's why New York City has been chosen, even though it's in New Jersey. The country's most populous city and one of its two major cultural hubs, along with LA. It's truly a global metropolis of nearly 9 million and boasts a distinctive and influential culture all its own. It has long been considered one of the world's preeminent tourist destinations. Some say there's also good pizza. It's too bad Chicago doesn't have games. That's fighting words. Those are fighting words. Within the 5 boroughs, it's good. Public transportation, that is. It will be very useful to have games. And even though this won't be in Manhattan, you can bet all the money you have. Not on the stock exchange. You could. That's Wall Street. But Times Square will definitely host what we would call a fan fest. There's definitely going to be an amazing fan fest that takes place in Times Square, and that helps everybody get geared up for this World Cup. I wouldn't be surprised at all if when we go to Times Square and you have like all the boards with soccer, and it's going to be an amazing aspect of this. And that will be maybe where the World Cup will have its final, at least semifinals. Will be a preeminent and a prominent spot in this 2026 World Cup. Let's continue. Let's move on to Philly. Philly, one of the surprises. Lincoln Financial Field, 69,000 fans can go in. That's where the Philadelphia Eagles play in the NFL. It will host the World Cup. And little known fact about the American cities of the World Cup, and I think it's very interesting. Here's a little tidbit of information. There's 5 cities that missed out in 1994 that were chosen for 2026, and Philadelphia is one of them. Seattle, Kansas City, Atlanta, Miami, and Philly were not involved in 1994 in the World Cup. LA, San Francisco, Dallas, New York, New Jersey, and Boston were. And the cities who were part of 1994 but are not going to host game in 2026 are Detroit, Chicago, and Orlando. The movement of demographic, the changes in fortunes for Detroit in 1994 to today, the collapse of the auto industry, and Chicago's collapse in economy versus decades ago would explain these things. But those are important aspects, and I think it's important to know which teams and cities will relive the World Cup for different times, and we'll be able to compare 1994 and 2026, and which cities are welcoming the Mundial for the first time and which one won't. But Philly, Here is a few information about Philadelphia. If we can go back to the Lincoln Financial Field for a few minutes. It once the nation's capital, Philly is rich with history and arguably the most passionate sports fans in the country. The city has regularly hosted massive events, and its geographical location, 40 million people are within 150 miles of the city, the most of any in the U.S., relatively close to fellows host Toronto, New York, New Jersey, and Boston creates a nice hub for teams and fans. But the timing of this World Cup couldn't be more perfect for a celebration in the city of brotherly love. Philadelphia likes to call itself the birthplace of America, and 2026 will mark the U.S.'s 250th anniversary. So it will pretty much be parties on top of parties in the city of brotherly love that year. Lincoln Financial Field is located in South Philly Stadium Complex, which features dedicated public transportation stops and food entertainment options. Driving in from outside of the city will be a nightmare, but once fans arrive, they can gorge themselves on cheesesteaks and crab fries, so the experience should balance out. Philadelphia, welcome to the 2026 World Cup. I'm getting goosebumps. It's going to be fun. Let's continue. Let's now look at the Bay Area, San Francisco, or better known as Santa Clara. Levi's Stadium, the birthplace of the perfectly tailored jeans. San Francisco, the Bay Area. That's where Levi's is from. And of course, I've enjoyed buying my 514 in Levi's next to Pier. What is it? 96? I might be butchering this. Where the Sea Lions are. That pier. 70,000 fans at San Francisco's Levi's Stadium. It will be a very interesting aspect, and it represents part of the western hub of this World Cup. Here's some more information on San Francisco and the Bay Area and the stadium. Levi's Stadium was opened in 2014 to host the 49ers, located in Santa Clara, 70,000 fans, and it has a Bermuda grass field, so you don't need to change the surface. It has played host to 17 soccer matches in its brief history, prominently featuring during the 2016 Copa America Centenario, including Chile's 7-0 quarterfinal victory over Mexico and the 2017 CONCACAF Gold Cup final. The Bay Area is also under consideration to host the 2031 and 2033 Rugby World Cup. Why the Bay Area? Well, San Francisco isn't known for its soccer history, despite hosting World Cup games in 94 and 99, the Women's World Cup in 99. The market struggles to sustain professional soccer. Most recently, the second division Deltas, San Francisco Delta, who had Marc Dos Santos at the helm with players like Cal W. Imet and Maxime Tissot. Canada National Team South at that point. Rest in peace to San Francisco Deltas, which won the league title and folded. One and done. Beautiful. Oh, beautiful, San Francisco Deltas. Well, despite that history, it's worth noting that San Francisco is one of two cities, along with LA, suggested by tournament organizers to host the final draw. San Jose, located closer to Levi's, has its own lengthy history in soccer, including generations of Earthquakes teams and strong grassroots scene. The Bay Area is a popular tourism destination along the Pacific Ocean, and roughly 60% of residents are Hispanic, Asian, African American, or Pacific Islander. This is one particular area of strength for the Bay Area. It is the transportation infrastructure. Sits along the Valley Transportation Authority light rail, also having access via Amtrak and local shuttle buses. So you can probably take the BART and mix to the BART to the VTA, and you don't have any trouble in the Bay Area. The stadium is also near the San Tomas Aquino Trail, a paved multi-use trail spanning over 100 continuous miles. It is a beautiful stadium. It doesn't need anything really to go forward. It is ready to use in all its glory. And as noted in what we just read by Jeff Rauter on the Athletics website, it is one of the two potential finals. Yes, New York, New Jersey, like Duane mentioned, that's maybe the media aspect, but in the bid that was presented to FIFA, the two cities that were considered as favorite for the final, and they suggested that should host the final, were LA, SoFi Stadium, and Santa Clara's Bay Area with this one. So it'll be interesting, but now let's move on. Let's continue to talk, and it's time to go to, yes, Toronto, Vancouver soon, but first we'll go to the Pacific's Northwest. Seattle will host games at Lumen Field. Quite happy for my friends in Seattle. Shout out to Duffy. Duffy, it was your son's birthday a few days ago. So if you are listening, Duffy Alverson, wish your son a happy birthday for me. Belated birthday at this point. Lumen Field, 68,740 is the expected capacity for the soccer configuration for this stadium. There will need to be some upgrades. That's where the Seahawks play in the NFL. That's where the Sounders play, and that's where the OL Reign play in the NWSL. It opened 2002. Why Seattle, you say? The city has embraced soccer to such a degree that it can now fairly be considered to be among the capitals of the sport in the US. Lumen Field is huge, good for soccer, and has a convenient downtown location. The city itself is great to walk around in the summer, with plenty for visitors to do regardless of where they're coming from. When it comes to transportation and infrastructure, Lumen Field is located an easy walk from downtown, with Pioneer Square being a popular starting point for Sounders fans' march to home matches. There's ample public transportation all around the area. MLS Cups held in the city have gone off without a hitch. Question of turf. They need to change the turf for Lumen Field and a couple of different, maybe upgrade to the stadium to bring it to today's standard when it comes to production of something to that level in 4 years. But not a whole lot. Fun fact, the picturesque view outside of Fraser Crane's luxurious penthouse apartment on the show Frasier is not physically possible. So that's very interesting to know, and a great comment by Alex Apnos on this beautiful article about the World Cup cities on The Athletic. It is time now to look at the two Canadian cities, Toronto and Vancouver. Let's start with Toronto. BMO Field, the smallest stadium in this World Cup bid right now, and it's expected to be built up to 45,000 for this World Cup if all the plans go according to. And Toronto, no problem for the transportation. TTC will love to have some upgrades, and you'll get some, and that'll be very beneficial. It will be a fun aspect to have a fan festival in Yonge and Dundas Square for sure. Toronto's Times Square, they would like to think, but Toronto's Value Village version of Times Square. 45,000 fans are expected to be seated in Toronto for the World Cup. One of the two Canadian cities, maybe 10 games split between the two, still to be confirmed. Maybe less, maybe more, that's still to be desired. But it's the National Stadium of Canada. It had to be included before being just Toronto's house. It was the National Soccer Stadium. It is still its official name when it's not branded. BMO Field was always going to be part of this World Cup, and hopefully it gets to 45,000 without a problem. It will have a great grass surface, and it should be a very interesting venue by the lakeshore for maybe Canada's first game in the World Cup. Now, Vancouver. That was the big surprise. Were Vancouver going to make it? Late comeback story in this process. They were not part of the beginning of this World Cup process, and late last minute decided to go back into the conversation. They decided to, because they took their ball and went home, and then they're like, okay, we need something to help recover this city from COVID. We're possible to have a World Cup. Let's put our marbles in. And they got in just in time, and they will host World Cup matches. 54,000 fans can be seated in BC Place for the soccer configuration with the second bowl open. Why Vancouver? Let's read what they say about Vancouver. Joshua Cloak writes about Vancouver. With a capacity of over 54,000 fans, BC Place is the third largest stadium in Canada. It's home to Vancouver Whitecaps and CFL's BC Lions. All right. As an aside, I can't wait for visitors to learn more about Canadian football. Yes, fine. But the Canadians previously hosted the opening and closing ceremony of the 2010 Winter Olympics, also game of the Women's World Cup in 2015. It's arguably the most beautiful city in North America, surrounded by the Pacific Ocean and mountains. It's sometimes easy to forget you're in the city. The province of British Columbia had originally pulled itself out of the running to host games, citing cost concerns, but Vancouver was then pulled back in the running with a successful late application in April. The goal was to boost tourism after the pandemic, and hosting World Cup games should help that. BC Place is located in downtown Vancouver with a stop on the city's SkyTrain outside the venue. There are major roads nearby to get people in and out of the city. What needs to be done? Once again, it is turf inside BC Place. It will need to be replaced by a grass surface. But that has been the story all across these stadiums. It's about grass. You'll need to replace all these NFL stadiums that have the artificial grass with the natural grass. But that is something that will be done. It'll take a few years. Maybe they'll start to do the process a couple years before. And will it be done permanently? It can't just be temporarily. That grass needs to settle, and we'll see a lot of return to grass, and maybe it'll spark a new trend of having grass fields in your stadiums instead of artificial grass. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be something? Which stadium is your favorite? Which of the 16 cities are you looking forward to visiting? Are you still sad for Edmonton? Was it Edmonton's political fault that they're not in this? Is the political class of Alberta responsible for the lack of games at Commonwealth Stadium? Those are all great questions, and I would love to know what you think about the 16 host cities. Which city would you have had? You can comment in the comment section below. You can tag us on social media. You can send me an email that I would gladly read on air if you would like to talk about all those amazing cities that haven't made the cut. And if you have a Canadian city that you would like for us to talk about, let us know. And we will talk about it on the Two Solitudes podcast, available on Patreon at patreon.com/2solitudes. We will break down maybe the hits and miss of the cities and which city we would have chosen if we were in that position. Now, before we say goodbye, it is Friday and it is MLS weekend preview time. We will have more on the Canadian Premier League in a review of this weekend's game on Monday's show. Due to time constraints on today's show and all the World Cup cities, we didn't get a chance to talk about the Canadian Premier League. The CanPL review will be back on Monday. But for now, here's the schedule for Week 15 in Major League Soccer. It starts tomorrow, Seattle LAFC. Interesting matchup at 3 p.m. Eastern. LA Galaxy Portland at 5 p.m. Eastern. New York Toronto, that's the Red Bulls versus Toronto FC. Columbus Charlotte, that game is fascinating, 7:30. Will Columbus rectify their terrible beginning of the season, or will Charlotte continue to surprise and maintain their position in a playoff position? Montreal against Austin. Montreal will face Austin at Stade Saputo Saturday evening. Interesting matchup between two of the hottest players in Major League Soccer. Two of the hottest players, that is Georgi Mihailovic and Sebastian Driussi. 8 goals for Driussi, 7 for Mihailovic. Will they continue on that tally? Answer coming Saturday night on TVA Sport, of course. Philly Cincinnati, 7:30 p.m. Saturday. Orlando Houston at 7:30 p.m. Saturday. Chicago DC at 8 p.m. on Saturday evening. Chicago, how will they answer? How will they answer the snub of not being a World Cup team? Maybe a World Cup city. Maybe that's my biggest gripe with the World Cup. There's no game in Chicago. Come on, Chicago. It has lost a little bit of its of its reputation, unfortunately. Dallas, Vancouver. That is a good one. I'm looking at Dallas beat Vancouver. Vancouver is not going to be easy. They got spanked a few days ago against Seattle. Can they recover? They're on the road. It's going to be in Dallas. The weather's not going to be easy. They're not used to it. Dallas has a good season. Yeah. If I had to wager on that one, if I had to go to BETUS, which you can click on the link and get a 125% deposit bonus with the link in the description below, I would not touch Vancouver. I would choose Dallas very easily in this matchup. Dallas is a better team than Vancouver, and Vancouver has lost the little bit of momentum they had. Cavallini's performance with the national team won't be enough to propel Vancouver to victory, in my opinion. Salt Lake San Jose, 9:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Fun matchup. We'll see if Kylek's injury continues to hold back Salt Lake, or maybe it's not even enough to hold them back, as they are performing above expectations so far. And on Sunday, 4 games on Sunday, Atlanta, Miami in the afternoon. It will be a hot one at the Benz. Atlanta will try to surprise the kind of red hot, pinkish hot Miami. New England versus Minnesota. New England fresh off of the transfer of Adam Busa. New England, who tied Orlando midweek 1-1. Will they turn things around and get a result at home against Minnesota? Not everything is going well for Minnesota, and Adrian Heath could be one of the few managers on the hot seat. New York City, fresh off of the departure of Ronnie Deila to Belgium with their new manager Nick Cushing. Will we see a coach bump against Colorado? Colorado struggling to maintain the expectations from last year's Western Conference performance as they finished first in the West at the end of the season. But this year so far, as we're going to look in the standings in a few minutes, it's not as easy. In the last game this weekend, Nashville, Kansas City. To me, this is when it happens. Nashville, Kansas City. If Nashville gets a big win at home against Kansas City, Monday morning, check your phones from the Kansas City area. Peter Vermees could be in hot waters come Monday. That is my opinion. It's not information. But that's what the statistics tells me. They are struggling. More than struggling, they are the worst team in the league right now. Here's your standings in the Western Conference. LA is still the best team in the league, 29 points. Supporter Shield winners and, leaders at this point. And we're looking at Dallas, Salt Lake, Austin, the Galaxy in 5th, Nashville, and Seattle finishing off the 7th spot for a position in the playoffs. Houston, Minnesota, Colorado, just a point away from a playoff spot. Vancouver, 2 points away. Then a little drop. Portland, 12th with 15 points. San Jose, 15 points. And Kansas City, worst team in the league so far. Time to look at the Eastern Conference standings before we say goodbye for today. As we have NYCFC, top of the East, 26 points. Will they stay there? That's the question. Will a coaching change make them go down? Look at Atlanta. They're 10th, only 16 points. They were way higher a few months ago. Injuries galore have propelled the Five Stripes down the pecking order. You never know what's around the turn in Major League Soccer, and losing your manager might be enough to make you a subpar team. NYCFC in rumors of losing their best player, Castellanos, maybe this summer or in the fall. Will that derail New York's season? Or not? They are a very well-coached team, but the coach has left. What will they do as a transition period for NYCFC? Philly 2nd, Montreal 3rd, New York 4th. very interesting aspect of this standings. Can New York get the job done at home? If New York were able to play for 500 at home, they would be top of the league right now. I'm not even kidding. That's a fact, boys and girls and men and women and everybody out there. It's a fact. If the Red Bulls were a good team at home, if the Red Bulls could win half their games at home, they'll be first in MLS. Orlando, Cincinnati, Miami finishes the top 7 in the East. Let's now move on the other side. Charlotte, Columbus, and Atlanta only a point away with New England from a playoff spot. 2 points, actually. Toronto, DC, and Chicago. Chicago, 11 points. Worst team in the East, worst team in the West. 2 points behind Kansas City. That's your wooden spoon contenders there. Kansas City and Chicago. One of them will host the World Cup, one of them won't. And we'll have more on the Two Solitudes podcast that you can find at patreon.com/2solitudes. You can follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramie, this show at Soccer Today SPN. If you are a content creator out there and you would like some help with design, some advice, tips, and tricks, you can contact me through my company here, Spin Media Digital Solutions. Myself and my colleague will get back to you, and it will be our pleasure to help navigate this world of content creation and be able to create beautiful things together. That is available. And also, now, if you like to wager on sports, we are affiliated with BETUS. You can find the link in the description below. It helps support the show. You get a 125% deposit bonus when you join, and you can bet on soccer at BETUS. And just before we say goodbye, we want to thank today's sponsor, Manscaped. You can get 20% off and free shipping worldwide with code SOCCERTODAY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping worldwide at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always have the right tools for the job with Manscaped. We'll be right back tomorrow. And as always, well, no, tomorrow's Saturday. We'll be back Monday. And as always, until Monday, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kev Laramie. We wish you a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcasts.